begin this program by telling you one of my favorite stories, the story of the camel. There was this camel owner that was traveling across the desert and pitched tent for the night, and the slaves came in to report that they had 20 camels and only 19 pegs to tie them to. What do they do? So the master said to them, you know, these camels are stupid creatures. Just go through the motions of driving a peg in the ground and tying this last camel to it, and it will stay put for the whole night, which is exactly what happened. The next morning, when they lifted tent and were moving on, the slaves came to report that this camel wouldn't budge. Ah, said the master, you probably forgot to go through the motions of untying him. So they untied him, and the stupid animal went ahead, went with the others. How like human beings, who are so thrilled by things that are not real, illusory, and are so terrified by things which are illusory: success, failure, criticism, the good opinion of others, as I explained to you in our last program. The other day, I was traveling from the US to Canada. As we crossed the Canadian border, or the US frontier, the pilot said, well, we're at the US border right now. You look down through the window, it's funny, you can't see it, you know. Have you realized that that only exists in your mind, that in nature there is no border? That being an American is only in your head? That there are no American trees or American mountains? This is a convention that people are ready to die for. That's how real it looks to them. Has it ever struck you that Christmas Day doesn't exist except in your mind? In nature, there's no Christmas Day, but you got Christmassy feelings. Or there's no New Year's Day, and there's no illegitimate child. Tell someone he or she is an illegitimate child. Turmoil. But in nature, there is no illegitimate child. Illegitimacy is a human convention. Tell a kid that he or she is adopted, and you run into trouble sometimes. It is in the head. There are cultures where almost everyone is adopted, so nobody bothers. We're reacting to words. We're reacting to ideas in our head. We live on ideas. We feed on them, on words, words, words. Reminded of the guy, the farmer, who was living on the Russian border, the Finnish-Russian border. They were drawing up the frontier, and he had to make up his mind whether he wanted his farm to be in Finland or in Russia. He chose Finland. The Russian officials descended upon him and demanded to know why he didn't want to be in Russia. And he said, look, all my life, I have always wanted to live in Mother Russia. But you know, at this age, I simply wouldn't be able to take another Russian winter. Or your Mark Twain, who says, cold. If the thermometer had been half an inch longer, we would have frozen to death. In this program, I want to deal with the illusions connected with love. To talk of prayer is to talk of love. For God is love. Love is divine. But what generally goes under the name of love has nothing to do with love at all. Nothing. So let me begin by telling you what love is not, and then indicating, however vaguely, what love is. Love is not attraction. I love you more than I love anyone else. Translate, I'm more attracted to you than to others. How does that sound? You draw me more than others. You fit the programming in my head better than other people do. Not very flattering to you, because if my programming had been different, remember how people say, what does he find in her? What does he see in her? Aha! They say love is blind. Attraction is blind, not love. There is nothing so clear-sighted as love. This whole process of I'm attracted to you, you know where the love comes from? It comes from you, not from me. It doesn't spring from me. You draw me. The day you cease to be attractive, what happens? Well, I'll hold on to you out of guilt, out of loyalty, out of an ideal. But love in your sense of the word has died. If for you love means attraction, it's gone. I was told of an old couple, grandpa and grandma. They were celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. They were tired after all the celebrations, sitting in the veranda, and grandpa felt moved, see, and he said, Grandma, I'm proud of you. What was that, Grandpa? She says, you better speak louder. You know I cannot hear you without my hearing aid. He said, I'm proud of you. She says, that's all right, I'm tired of you too. You know, that's where attraction always ends up. You're attracted. If you give in to that attraction, gratification follows. And after the gratification, wearisomeness. Or, if it persists, anxiety. I hope I can keep this. I hope somebody else doesn't get it. Possessiveness, jealousy, fear of loss. That isn't love. Another thing that love is not, it is not dependency. Now, you know, it's very good to depend on people. We depend on one another, or else we wouldn't have society. Interdependence, wonderful. We depend on the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. We depend on the pilot, on the cab driver, on all sorts of people. But to depend on another for your happiness, that is the evil. That someone would have the power to decide whether you would be happy or not. If you have that, if you ever give to somebody this power, you will be fearful. You will manipulate. You cannot leave that person free, because don't forget, your happiness depends on this person. You're a burden. Sometimes you get two empty people depending on one another. Two incomplete people depending, leaning on one another. Two dominoes. One moves, the other falls. Is that love? Love is not the assuaging of our loneliness. People feel empty inside, and they rush to fill the emptiness with someone. That isn't love. Incidentally, that emptiness, that loneliness that so many people are running away from. They run into all kinds of activity, even social activity. They run into work. They run to other people's arms to assuage that emptiness, that loneliness. The only cure for that loneliness, I said to you in the previous program, is not contact with human beings, but contact with reality. What does that mean? If you would face the loneliness, you might discover that it isn't there. There is no emptiness. If you would face the illusion that you were programmed into by your society, that you need others, you'd realize it isn't there. You're watching a movie, enjoying yourself immensely. Suddenly, at that moment, you don't need anybody. This is an illusion that has been created in our heads. And here's something else you may want to remember for the future. Both what you're running away from and what you're searching for is inside of you. It's all there. If you would face what's going on inside of you, what you're running away from would disappear. And what you're searching for would emerge. So love is not the assuaging, the soothing of our loneliness. Mostly when people talk about love, you know what they're talking about? They're talking about a thing of the market. It's a bargain. You be good to me, I'll be good to you. You be nice to me, I'll be nice to you. You're not nice to me, funny. Those nice feelings I had towards you turn sour. Is that love? You could bargain with money. You could strike a deal with money. You could strike a deal with all kinds of things. You're striking a deal with your emotions. And that's supposed to be love. Here's another surprise. Love is not desire. I desire you with all my heart. You know, inasmuch as I love you, I do not desire you. I enjoy you thoroughly. But I'm too full to need you. It's like when you come, you're so enjoyable. And when you leave, I'm not at all miserable. I'll enjoy the next thing, and the next, and the next person, and the next. I'm full. And if you are full too, how marvelous that is. Centuries ago, Buddha had these marvelous words to say. The world is full of sorrow. The origin of sorrow, the root of sorrow, is desire. The uprooting of sorrow is desirelessness. Let's translate that better, because by desire he meant a desire on whose fulfillment my happiness depends. And our societies and cultures are the whole time encouraging us to add to these desires. So we're more and more programmed to unhappiness and to non-love. The world is full of sorrow. The root of sorrow is craving. The uprooting of sorrow is cravinglessness. I desire all kinds of things, but I don't desperately need anything. If that desire is not fulfilled, I'll be quite happy. I explained this in the previous program. Sometimes people say, if you had no desire, would you ever achieve something? If you had no ambition, like that guy who stands up on a platform and he says, I was born an Englishman, I will live an Englishman, and I shall die an Englishman. And an Irishman in the crowd shouts, man, have you got no ambition? He says, ambition. That's one of the things we were brainwashed into. They told us, if you don't have an ambition, you won't do anything. They forgot that there's so much energy and so much delight in working, whereas the ambition brings tension. Listen to these marvelous words of the great Chinese sage, Chuang Tzu. They're so good, I took the trouble to learn them by heart. Let's see if they come out well. And if they don't, we won't be upset by the failure, will we? Now, when an archer shoots for nothing, he says, he has all his skill. When he shoots for a brass buckle, he is already nervous. when he shoots for a prize of gold, he goes blind. He is out of his mind. He sees 2 targets. His skill has not changed, but the prize divides him. He cares. He thinks more of winning than of shooting. And the need to win drains him of power. Isn't that marvelous? It was your ambition that drained you of power. You were driving with your brakes on. You were tense. So, the world is full of sorrow. The root of sorrow is craving. Marriages that are built on craving are so fragile, so ready to fall apart. I have expectations of you. You'd better live up to them, or else. You have expectations of me. I'd better live up to them, or else. Quarrels. See, you need me, I need you. I need to find my happiness in you. You need to find your happiness in me. That's where the struggle begins. That's where the possessiveness begins. And you know something? Wherever there is desire, in this sense of the word, there's a threat. And where there's a threat, there's fear. And where there is fear, there is no love, because we always hate what we fear. And perfect love casts out fear. Wherever there's desire of the type that I described, it always goes attended by fear. So love is not desire. Love is not attachment. Falling in love is the exact opposite of love. And it's canonized everywhere. It's a disease. Everybody's trying to give it to you. You find it in your movies, in your love songs. These are need songs. I saw a movie the other day. This girl says to this boy who's dying, "Don't die. I love you. I cannot live without you." I cannot live without you. Love. That's hunger. So, you know something? When I fall in love with you, I cease to see you. I don't see you anymore. Whenever there's a powerful emotion, whether it's positive or negative, I cannot see you. The emotion comes in the way. I'm projecting my own needs onto you. Falling in love is blind. Attachment. We're already moving into what love is. I told you what love is not. You know something? I cannot tell you what love is. It cannot be said. I cannot tell you what happiness is. It cannot be said. When you drop your fears and your attachments and your illusions, you will know. I could give you comparisons. Listen to this. To love means at least clarity of perception, accuracy of response. I see you clearly as you are. That's the least I could demand in love. How could I love you if I don't see you? Now get ready for a surprise. Generally, when I see you, or you see me, we don't see one another, we're seeing an image. A husband, does he relate to his wife or to his image of his wife? Is the wife relating to her husband or to her image of her husband? How is this image formed? Watch this. If you think you've been shocked till now, get ready for this one. I have an experience of you. That experience is stored in my memory. I make a judgment on the basis of that experience. I'm carrying this along with me. And I'm acting or reacting to you on the basis of this. Not on the basis of what you are right now. There's a picture on my window as I look through it at you. I'm looking through that picture. No clarity of perception. There's a lovely sentence in the New Testament where Paul, speaking of love, says, love keeps no record of wrongs. And I say to people sometimes, you're going to be very sorry when you get up there and you find they don't have any books. There's a lovely story of this woman who's supposed to be getting visions of God, so the bishop sends for her. And he says, listen, you're creating a great sensation. I suppose you realize that being bishop of the diocese, it is up to me to decide whether those visions are true or false. She says, yes, Your Excellency. And this is my responsibility and duty. Yes, Your Excellency. So you're going to have to do what I tell you. I will, Your Excellency. He says, now look, the next time that God appears to you, or whoever it is that appears to you, you're going to put him this test by which I'll know whether he's really God or not. She says, very well, Your Excellency. What is the test? And the test is going to be this. You're going to say to God, please tell me the private and personal sins of the bishop. And then he says, after God has revealed that to you, if he is God, then you come and tell me and no one else. Okay? And she said, very well, Your Excellency. After a month, she comes back. And the bishop said, did God appear to you again? She says, I think so, Your Excellency. Did you ask him that question? She said, I certainly did. And what did God say? God said, go tell the bishop I forgot his sins. How about that one? No record. You know something? Love keeps no records of rights either. No rights, no wrongs. No good, no bad. I see you in present moment freshness, and I react to what's here. Shall I react to a memory or to you? A memory, good or bad. That cuts both ways, you know. We had a quarrel, and you come up to me and say, you know, sorry about that quarrel. Quarrel? I remember it, but there's no emotion attached to it. It's over. That's what the mystics are talking about when they talk about the purification of memory. They're not saying forget everything, drain it of emotion, sanitized. And you say, remember how much we were in love 2 years ago? You want me to react to that? You want me to react to you as you are now? You want to carry over this capital and get dividends from it? You know, if you come to think of it, it's terrifying. Most people are doing the opposite of this, which means they don't know what love is. Love is like listening to a symphony. Life is a symphony, and to love means to be sensitive to the whole of that symphony. It means to have a sensitive heart to everyone and to everything. Can you imagine someone who's listening to a symphony and only hears the drums? Or gives so much value to the drums that the other instruments are almost drowned out? A good musician who loves music will listen to every one of those instruments. He may have his favorite instrument. He may have his preferences, but he listens to them all. When you fall in love, when you have an infatuation, an attachment, an addiction, an obsession with a human being, you know what you're doing? That person stands out and the others are drowned out. Your heart is no longer sensitive. Love is not a relationship. Love is a state of being. Love exists before there's any human being around. Before you come around, love already exists. Namely, the sensitive heart exists always. You don't draw that heart. That heart is sensitive to you and responds accurately to you. But then to drown out the drums, that's just as bad because you're hardening your heart again. This is what love is, to listen to the whole of the symphony, to be sensitive to it all. I told you, when the eye is unobstructed, the result is sight. You cannot do anything to get love. If you would understand your desires, attachments, attractions, obsessions, addictions, and they would drop, love would emerge. When the eye is unobstructed, the result is sight. When the heart is unobstructed, the result is love. In my country, the poets and the mystics put it so beautifully. They say, is it possible for a rose to say, I will give my fragrance to good people and withhold it from bad people? The rose, by its very nature, cannot but love all. Is it possible for a lamp lit in the night to say, I will give my light to the good people in this room and withhold it from the bad? Is it possible for a tree to say, I will give my shade to the good people who sit under me, but withhold it from the bad? It cannot. And the poet Kabir will say, the tree will give its shade even to the man who is striking it down, and if it is a sweet-smelling tree, it will leave its scent on the axe. What merit is it to you, of yours, if you only greet those who greet you? And if you only love those who love you? You must be all loving, as your heavenly Father is all loving, for he makes his sun to shine on good and bad alike, and on saints and sinners alike. All right. If you have some questions, I'll deal with those.
Could you explain what you mean by responding accurately? A little more detail?
All right. When you perceive clearly, you really cannot but respond accurately. Because clarity of perception means you've dropped whatever obstacles there are to seeing. That seeing is love. You will spontaneously give to each thing the response it deserves. So that's what it really means. Anyone else?
You've referred off and on to prayer, that a response is prayer, various things are prayer. Where does the answer to the prayer, or God's side of this prayer, come in?
Right. What I've been referring to is not so much the Lord, Lord, but do what I tell you. This is the prayer I've been talking about, see? The two types of prayer, there's the Lord, Lord, that's pretty good. And there's something much better. Do what I tell you. You know something? There are people who do what he tells them without ever saying Lord, Lord, or even having heard of the Lord. Does that make sense to you? Does it? Does it? Yes, wonderful. And there are people who are full of Lord, Lord, but mighty little else. So it's like people saying, Lord, we worked miracles in your name. We prayed to you day and night. I do not know you. So, to do what I tell you, that is love of God. To be transformed into love, that is love of God. Then you will know what God is. Then you will know what reality is. All right, let me sum up for you what I was saying in this program. I talked about a major illusion that we have, the illusions concerning love. In the previous programs, I dealt with other illusions. Prayer, love, spirituality, religion means drop your illusions. Inasmuch as religion helps you to do this, it's fine. Inasmuch as it distracts you from it, takes you away from it, it's a disease, it's a plague, it must be avoided. Once these illusions withdraw, the heart will be unobstructed. Then there will be love. Then there will be happiness. Then there will be transformation. And only then will you know what God is.